My new book, Facts That Aren't True, is out now. Don't forget about my other book, Rational Answers to Stupid Questions.
You're an agnostic atheist?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, people think that if you're an atheist, you proclaim that God does not exist, and that's not necessarily the case.
All right. So, are you open to the idea that the Bible could be allegories?
I have no problem with that, but that does, how do I want to say it? At the same time, that kind of undermines everything, because how are we supposed to tell what is and what is not an allegory? Well, you would appeal to probably like science or common sense or the historical record or whatever to determine, to be like, well, yeah, obviously that one was an allegory. But then you'll say, well, so Jesus metaphorically rose from the dead. That was just meant to represent something. Well, no, he actually rose from the dead. It's like, okay, well, rising from the dead or walking on water or whatever, none of that is any less silly than a boat built by a 900-year-old man. So it's just odd to me how we will appeal to like science and common sense or whatever to say like, well, no, it wasn't literally 6 days. But yes, he literally walked on water. I mean, if this book is about God and God doing things, then why have weak faith? Why not just throw in with the entire thing?
All right. You believe in the Big Bang, yes? How much would you say that you believe in the Big Bang? 100%?
I wouldn't. I don't see how you could possibly put a number on it. I'm highly confident in the work that the scientists have done to give us an age of billions of years for our universe.
All right. You say you're highly confident in that.
Yeah, same way I'm confident that my phone does not run on magic, but
Do you know
electromagnetism, even though I don't really know
when,
how a phone works at all.
all right, well, do you know when most scientists agreed upon this, the Big Bang?
Early 20th century, maybe closer toward like the middle to later parts.
So if this was 500 years ago, then you would lean towards all the scientists 500 years ago and think otherwise.
What? We didn't
You just
have.
told me that you're pretty confident because most scientists agree upon, and I'm telling you that back then, most scientists would have differed, so you would have agreed with something else back then.
There were very few scientists back then. Science was a new thing, and they were deeply ignorant. I have no problem saying, like, I get this argument that science changes, so why believe in it? I'm only telling you about things we are confident that we currently know. It's like, for example, only like 300 years ago, people insisted that, well, let's go back a little bit farther than that. Like before Columbus sailed to America, they knew that there must be this like landmass. What was it? Now, I can't remember the timeline. I think actually it was after they discovered America. Sorry about that. But they said there must be a landmass in between Europe and North America. Not a very big one. It had a name. I don't remember what it is, but they said it must exist. And they had like these very bizarro justifications for it. Now, we eventually learned that that's not the case after we like sailed the world and mapped it and things like that. So they were wrong, but they were wrong because they were trying to form an idea out of their ignorance and whatever intuitions they had. Now, a long time ago, before we had good technology and before we were doing any kind of serious science, people had intuitions about the way things must be, and those intuitions were most commonly influenced by religion, right? And that's kind of the biggest reason why most of what they said was wrong. Now, today, because we have the technology and because we really know what we're doing, we have a lot of confidence in saying that in specific claims. So just because the science has changed doesn't necessarily mean that in the future we should assume nothing is true because in the future it could be disproven or whatever. That just seems
Yeah,
silly.
all right. Okay, so okay. Well, might I ask you a question and then show you the relevance of it after?
I don't care. You can do whatever you want.
All right. Well, do you believe that non-binary people are real, or do you think that that's made up?
Do I believe that non-binary people are real, or do I
Like
think
that
that's me?
there's
Whether
neurological things happening inside of people's brains that allow them to be neither male or female.
well, now I don't know if you're talking about like biological sex or gender. So I would say with both of them, it's not. I would say it's probably bimodal, which means that there are exceptions built within there.
All right. Well, I was using that as an example because I know gender and sex are different, yes, but I don't necessarily think that someone's gender. I don't like the idea of it being a construct or being able to choose chemical imbalance, things like that. But that isn't what the mainstream thinks. That isn't what most scientists think. That isn't what people think, and that isn't a fact. And I don't necessarily agree with it. And I think very much so that I'm right, despite all these things. I think that you believe in things like you were just telling me, because the mass believes it. The mass people you deem to be the smartest believe it. Do you say that they go through trial and error to come to these conclusions? I mean, you could say the same thing about non-binary. I've looked into those studies. I don't agree with them whatsoever. I think that I think that I think that's very biased. I think it's very biased to say. I think that's I don't know. I just don't think that you could even go through and look for it yourself, but I still don't think that it'll add up.
What are we talking about? So you just don't think that the Big Bang model is correct and accurate?
I think that it's just about as accurate as a god.
Why?
Why?
Yeah,
Well,
why
because
do
humans
you
have been
think
wrong.
that?
Well, dude,
What makes you
less than
think
20
that?
years ago.
Well, I could ask a
Because
different question.
people know
What makes you
nothing.
think
Less
that the
than 20 years
scientists have
ago.
this wrong?
Okay, dude, less than 20 years ago, we just took a planet off the map. Back in 2020, we just now had
It's
the
just
best
reclassified,
theory
was all.
reclassified. But what if things get reclassified again and they don't really suit your beliefs right now? So
So
let's
the
say,
definite, buddy, you are mixing up like definitions and like social constructs, I guess we can call it, with like you are mixing that up with observed physical, very simple phenomena such as like the expansion of the universe. That's not something where you get to decide how much redshift has occurred or what redshift really means. Like that is not subjective, or if it has some subjectivity to it, it is not at the level of, well, is Pluto a planet or not? Because there's no such thing as a planet except in the minds of humans. There is such a thing as space-time, and there is such a thing as objects in the universe moving through space-time, regardless of what we think. So I think you're mixing two wildly different things up in here.
no, I'm just
What do you
telling
mean no?
you, the only claim I've made was that I was agnostic. It's the only claim that I've made.
Yeah, and I asked
Other
you
than
for a
that, other
justification,
than
and
that,
your
I'm just
justification
asking you
was
questions.
really conflated subjectivity and objectivity
Justification
in
for
the
being.
natural
I never told you.
sciences.
I never told you why I believe in agnosticism. I've only asked you questions about your beliefs.
Yeah, and I asked
I've
you
only
a
asked
question,
questions.
and your justification
What's
was
the
really faulty.
justification for what was the question?
Why do you think the Big Bang model is inaccurate? And you said because we reclassified Pluto, and it's like
No, I didn't.
that's a
No, I
category.
didn't. I
Yes,
said
that's
no.
literally
So
what
when you had
happened.
said, I said that as well, but it's not what you had said. Not for justification for why I'm agnostic. I told you that you asked me why I didn't believe in the Big Bang Theory. I said it's just as plausible as there being a God, is what I had said. And then when I was telling you about your things, I had mentioned why I don't think that you should believe a large mass of people coming to a different conclusion because just less than 20 years ago, we had taken Pluto off of the map. That does not correlate. That's not
Yeah, but
justification.
that's
The only claim that I had made was being agnostic. and I can further that if you would like me to.
That
but I
that's
do
a
prefer you not
your
gaslight me.
Pluto example is a terrible example because that's just people coming up with it. They just categorized it differently. It didn't that the Big Bang being wrong. You'd have to overturn
I'm telling you.
the observations with like our observations of light in the universe. That's completely different than saying, well, let's just call this object a trans-Neptunian object instead of a planet.
All right,
You're
so
mixing up quantitative and qualitative descriptors.